My name is Joshua Crawford, and I'll be your host on this podcast to just sit back and talk about issues in our country, not in a partisan way that supports either the Republicans or the Democrats, but just to examine the facts behind what's going on. I'm not here to tell you how to vote or even what to believe in. My goal here is to challenge you to think independently, to find the facts, so that you, the individual who believes in your heart that you know what's going on, can determine what is the right course, not just in your own personal life, but maybe how you vote as well. We have so many different issues that are occurring in this country that I think need to be examined in an open, fair manner. Your comments to this podcast are going to be read, and they're going to be taken seriously, including those that disagree with anything that I may have to say. There are times we may be interviewing individuals to find out their perspective and take a deeper dive into many issues that affect our country. Take a look at Donald Trump, for example, one of the most polarizing peoples in the country and in many respects the world because of what's going on right now. He was just found guilty because of information regarding a non-disclosure agreement with Stormy Daniels. We're not going to talk about the fallacious details of what was discussed in that courtroom involving what she claims occurred. But at the same time, many people are believing that this is just an attack on him because he's running for president. Is there any way to prove that? Who knows? As an individual, as an American, I would have liked to have seen these court actions being taken in 2020 and 2021 before he ever announced his candidacy. That may not have taken away all the controversy around Donald Trump running for president, but it would have at least allowed for all of these matters to be adjudicated and ultimately for America to determine whether or not he was an individual that was even legally allowed to run for president, let alone fit to run. But as we well know, these issues have come up after he announced his nomination or announced his desire to be nominated. And let's take a look at the non-disclosure thing. Some people believe that the prosecution and his being found guilty is legitimate. You're entitled to your own opinion. But when you look at this country right now, and you take a step back and you take Donald Trump's name away, we have a border issue, we have an economy, we have war in Europe, we have Israel and Hamas, we have tension between China and Taiwan, we have our economy. Where does a non-disclosure agreement rank with all of that? We have multiple impeachments that have occurred. Our Homeland Security Director, multiple impeachments with Trump. We have the President of the United States, Joe Biden, being investigated for what could be an impeachment if he's ever reelected. Is impeachment become the norm in society as opposed to something that's reserved? Reserved for very unique cases. It's called high crimes and misdemeanors. Something that historically has not been done that often, and yet today seems like it's being done too often. There are so many things to discuss, so many things to look at. We hope to present you with a fair angle, a fair look, an objective look that doesn't lean towards the Republicans or the Democrats as it relates to favoritism. Again, I would never tell you how to vote or what to believe in. That is a choice you have to make. But so many times I feel that the individual's voice is being stamped out in order to support the narrative of ideology. Ideology doesn't always work in society when it replaces reality. Oftentimes, society ends up paying for that, no matter what side of the aisle you vote for. It can be damning to overcome the effects of that. Most of the legislation that's occurred in this country that has benefited the public has come from bipartisan legislation, and not even that works all the time. But it's at least a step in the right direction, where politics are being put aside in order to benefit us, the individuals out here working and paying taxes. We're going to dive into those issues too, and interview individuals who have challenges and have faced challenges, receiving employment, and then making sure that they're treated fairly and equitably so that they can perform in a competitive environment with non-disabled coworkers, knowing that they have the same abilities to achieve success and in their own lives, achieve greatness. That ultimately is the American dream, a dream we all should share and hopefully still believe in. It's so hard, though, when you look at the news, when you look at all the stuff that's coming out. Some of it is slanted heavily, right or left. Where's the real journalism going? And who are the real journalists in our America? Are they still local? Or even are they local anymore? Nationally, it's hard for me to even discern that. And I'm a pretty balanced individual. I try to look at all the facts. I try to find truth where I can. What is our opinion internationally? When a presidential candidate in Donald Trump is being tried for all these different cases, do we look like a banana republic like most people think we do? Or is that just the opinion of those who are conservative? That's a great question. We used to be a strong country. The President of the United States used to be viewed as the leader of the free world, an individual who could bring balance, maintain peace, stability, and have an economy that not only supports our people, but drives the economy of the world. What is the opinion of the United States these days? What will be the opinion of the United States if Donald Trump is reelected? How do they view Joe Biden? These things are great questions because so much of the stability of the world is interdependent upon the United States. Whether we like it or not, we have been a world superpower, both militarily and economically, since World War II. May not like it, but that's the way things are. When the United States is weak, most people think stability across the world is weak. Would Hamas have ever attacked Israel under Trump's administration? That's a good question. We don't know, and we may never know that. Many people think, on the Republican side, that this would have never happened under a Trump administration. There would have been swift retaliation for any such attack by an organization labeled as a terrorist organization. Hamas, as some of you know, has rejected the most recent deal to secure peace, a lasting ceasefire, and return hostages back to Israel, and the United States for that matter. That has been rejected by Hamas. Secretary Blinken has put out statements that he would consider negotiating with Hamas aside from Israel, without Israel being there, in order to find peace in that region. According to what I understand, it's against the law for anyone in the United States government to negotiate with an organization that has been labeled as a terrorist organization. And yet, he's considering it. What are the implications to America's sovereignty and our safety if the Secretary of State begins negotiating with Hamas? Does that empower groups like Al-Qaeda and ISIS, who could already be here because of the weakness of our southern border and the catch and release policy? The FBI director has been warning about attacks in America for over a year now. And just this week, a terrorist cell in New York and in Philadelphia were both arrested. They came across the southern border, and they're here. They're picked up by the FBI and arrested. What does that say for our safety? They were in two major cities in this country. They weren't sitting out in a cornfield in Iowa, ladies and gentlemen. They were arrested because the government wiretapped their phones and verified that they planned on scheduling an attack. Whether that was going to be coordinated, I don't know. Was the New York group in touch with the Philadelphia group? I don't know. Many of the recent reports have not come out to detail this in any greater fashion than what we have heard on the news. A story that, by the way, isn't being discussed much anymore because of all the political stuff going on. The president in Europe with the G7, Hunter Biden just being convicted of felony gun charges, etc., etc., etc. You turn on the news right now, you know what you're going to get. It's all politics. And granted, politics are important. What about these other issues? What about the threat to our country? What about the potential threat for another terrorist attack in this country? Because we simply don't know all the people that have been coming here. And the people who are still coming in today, right now, under this administration. Would it be this bad under Trump? Can Trump close the southern border? And if he does, what then? Some people say that all these individuals should be grounded up and deported. How could you even potentially do that if you don't know where they are? Number two, countries like Venezuela don't have extradition treaties with the United States. You can't just drop them off at the front door. Where, in fact, are you going to take them? There are so many questions that we don't know the answer to. Many questions we need to know the answer to. A lot of questions, ladies and gentlemen, I may not know. We appreciate your feedback. As I stated before, we want to hear from you. In democracy, one of our most key factors used to be dissenting opinion, the ability for us to openly debate issues. We're never always going to agree on things, but debate educates us. It enlightens us, and it enables us to work towards viable, productive solutions. The concept of debate seems to be lost in politics today. Hearings in Congress, as well as in the Senate, enumerate that quite clearly. Take a look at Dr. Fauci, who was just recently in the Senate. The Republicans went after him. The Democrats apologized to him. Over what? The origins of COVID. Is that important? Is the money that went to China and how that was funded important? If in dollars, US dollars, went to China for that, did it come from China? Some people still believe it did not. And yet, when you have that man in the Senate and you have the opportunity to get answers and find the truth, all it looked like was a political slugfest. That's not the way our government should be working. It costs a lot of money to hold these hearings. And when all you get is a political slugfest, fighting and bickering and disagreement, the facts tend to get overlooked. And ultimately, we never find the truth. Is it so important politically to hold your water, to be right all the time, that we can't find the ultimate truth? When I grew up, no one liked being wrong, but at least we learned from it, and we learned something from that experience. Oftentimes, those experiences better us. They don't just empower us with knowledge, but they strengthen us. Strengthen us not to make the same mistakes again. Has ideology in government become so fierce and so bitter that we're afraid to find the truth? I fear that it has. I hope you join us as we release more podcasts to examine these and other issues, to better ourselves with knowledge. Knowledge is power, and ultimately, we need to make sure that a government of the people, for the people, and by the people is empowered with knowledge to make the right decisions. This is Joshua Crawford signing off, and I look forward to your comments.